And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking WRC, the drivers rating themselves, and what was quite an interesting article on DIRTFISH that I'd really like to get to. So kind of like an unofficial review of the year, so to speak, on a few of the drivers. Some may surprise you, some may not. So in terms of clouting, this is the article here. WRC drivers rate their own seasons. Now, DIRTFISH, it says here, ask a plethora, so I'm assuming not all, of WRC drivers to rank their seasons out of, well, the number 10, because why not? 10 is such a nicely rounded number. So let's be fair, who are we going to start with? Well, let's be honest, none other than the world champion, Terry Neuville. He gives himself a 9.5 out of 10. So DIRTFISH basically says, despite the return of Ott Tanak to the fold, which, let's be fair, Ott Tanak, you can make an argument for, he was the fastest driver of the year, but he made lots of mistakes. So Neuville effectively led the line for Hyundai all season. He got off to a perfect start, as we know, with what was a maximum score on the Monte Carlo rally, then added another victory on the Acropolis, en route to a long-awaited maiden world title. But even Neuville didn't give himself the maximum score. He said it wasn't perfect, but it was good, he reflected. It's hard to say. I would give myself a 9. Told DIRTFISH that he would have given him a 9.5. Neuville didn't argue. Yep, I agree with that. So 9.5. Now, interesting. Speaking of Hyundai, Cyril Abittal gave, I think, the whole team as a whole a 7.5 out of 10, which I thought was interesting. So Hyundai, as you know, it secured its first ever WRC drivers title this year. Its drivers won 5 rallies over the season, which is not much considering it's 13 rallies in total, equaling its best though, and it led the way in the Manufacturers' Championship for pretty much most of that year. But Hyundai ended up pipping them to the post literally at the last minute for the Makes title, leaving what was mixed emotions for the Hyundai boss. He said 7.5 was his assessment of his own season. He said not 10, no, of course not. Terry achieved his objective, and we helped Terry achieve this. He went on to saying, and I think we can do much more with that than we are given actually by Hyundai. Great people, great location, great facilities, great budget. Frankly, we can do better than that, so that's why it's 7.5. So yeah, not too bad. So the next up for me, and this most disappointing driver of the season. I'm so sorry. I don't want to do it to you, Alfred, but it is true. He gives himself, though, to be fair, a 6.5 out of 10. He was the runner-up in the World Championship for the 4th time in 5 seasons, ever the bridesmaid. Now, he is perhaps getting sick of that. Now, while there may be only one driver ahead of him in this year's standings, let's be fair, it was Ott Tanak rather than Evans who scuppered that, because Ott Tanak, really, he should have been second. He was fast enough to be second. And Elfyn Evans, he just didn't. It felt like he didn't turn up to some of the rallies. But the Welshman did win the final round of the season in Japan to claim what was, quite sadly, his only win of 2024. Bear in mind, going in as one of the championship favourites. Now, while part-time teammates OJ and Kalle Rovanperä snared 7 between them, it's a little wonder the 35-year-old, he doesn't rate this season particularly highly. He said, I have to not make myself look bad now. He laughed, and 6.5. He really needs, fingers crossed for Elfyn Evans next year. He needs, let's be fair, he needs a good one, doesn't he? He absolutely does. But speaking of good ones, this guy here, he had a good one, but he gave himself 7 out of 10. So 8-time world champion, was almost unwillingly thrust into the title fight, if you remember, becoming Toyota's best hope for a driver's title challenge. He ended up missing only 3 of the 13 rounds, but crashes on 3 consecutive events. Yeah, pretty much nada to that title. He finished what was with a fine drive in Japan that year that ended up being second overall, and this was in spite, or despite if you will, an early puncture and a crucial power stage win that clinched the manufacturer's title for Toyota. All the pressure was on him. He said, I don't know, it's hard to say. When asked to rate his season, he said, I haven't been perfect and I would love to be perfect, but I believe nobody is. Very true. He says, I'm still chasing it, but I think there is many ways to be satisfied in my season. He says 7 podiums in 10 races is not that bad at all. Average points scored per rally were probably the best. He said, I'm quite happy with the way I improved the performance during the end of the year. But he's most, let's be fair, he says himself he wasn't perfect. Yeah, Fair enough, OJ, you definitely would. But he said, I enjoyed it and it was a bit of a paradox. I had so much fun in the car on those 4 rallies, but couldn't win any of them. So that's the way it goes sometimes. He says, I don't know, maybe 7 out of 10 is like my number of podiums. So not too bad here. So what we don't have him as a picture, but Sami Pajari. Now, at the start of the season, his sole focus was that WRC2 campaign in the Toyota GR Rally 2. But by the end of it, not only had he scored 3 wins en route to the WRC2 title, he also enjoyed 3 outings in their Rally 1 car and earned a full, as we know, 2025 season in one. And it's going by anyone's standards, but not enough for Pajari to award himself full marks. He says something like 9. He told himself, I think it's a solid 9. It depends what kind of pointing system you have in your country. Why not 10? There's always room to improve, he explained. So kind of like Terry Neuville, he explained displaying his attitude. So next up, let's get rid of the wonderful and talented Seb OJ. And an up-and-comer, maybe? Well, he's not a Ford anymore, is he? Yeah, you may have guessed who it is. It's Adrian Formeau. He gave himself 8 out of 10. So as we know, this season was very much a breakthrough for M Sport's lead driver. And they are going to miss him, because if Monster's the lead... Oh, no, don't get me into it. But if Monster's the lead driver, well, I think... if I was the M Sport team, I'd be putting my hands together and start praying. But the Frenchman, let's talk about Formeau. He added podium after podium. For example, Kenya, Sweden, scored a further 3 third-place finishes before the season was out. And he finished 5th in the rankings. That's why Hyundai noticed him. So he reckoned it was a worthy score of out of 8 in the rankings. He explained 2 is missing because we had some technical issues and we missed some performance sometimes from my side in some of the rallies, he said. But we've always been competitive in every rally, but the perfect would be at least at the top of the podium. And that's pretty much all the drivers that DIRTFISH asked, but I generally thought it was quite an interesting title. People that definitely need to improve for next year, as well as Evans, though, it's going to be this man here, Takamatsu Katsuta. I think he was saved really solid drives at the end of the year, but once again, at the beginning of the year, like Evans, we thought, okay, both Elvin Evans and Taka, these are 2 drivers that are going to have to lead the Toyota team, and they didn't at all. They were quite lucky in the end that Seb OJ and Kalle Rovanperä, put the slack up, for example. And this man, the lead driver for next year, he's there because of his money, let's be honest, as are a few people. I'm sorry, M Sport. So, but let's leave on a slightly positive note, because yes, this man may have cost Hyundai the title, but the constructors title. But Ott Tanak did show, though, how fast he is this year. It's going to be really interesting in Hyundai. Ott Tanak, Terry Neuville, Formeau. We are really going to see how fast Formeau is. We're really going to see if Tanak can get his head switched on and not make a mistake. And the pressure now, Neuville, defending champion. I'm really looking forward to 2025, sorry. Also, was it no hybrid, is there? For 25, yeah. It's going to be even more interesting, isn't it? Absolutely. So if you made it to the end, please give us a subscribe. That would be absolutely amazing. The fact that you even clicked on this video is more than enough for me, though. But a massive, massive thank you. Hit that notification button so you do not miss a rally video. And again, thank you for clicking on it. I really, really appreciate it. It makes with every click, it makes me smile. And the fact that you're still watching at the end is absolutely amazing. We'll speak to you soon. Have a happy new year if I don't manage to catch you before, and stay safe.